I am excited today. We have Eowyn Chen, the CEO of Trust Wallet, which probably a large number of our listeners have used over time. So welcome. Appreciate you taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you
thanks.
for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us, first give us a little bit of your background
Yeah.
and how you end up with Trust Wallet or building Trust Wallet. I don't know where you started with Trust Wallet and how you got into space.
Probably getting to the space, everyone have their own journey. I'm
Yeah,
sure you guys do.
absolutely.
I got in actually in 2018, the bear market.
Good timing.
Before that, well, my career was relatively simple. I was a management consultant in New York, working for financial services industry.
Wow.
That made me understand how archaic and
Finance
outdated the
is.
systems are.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing startups in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
At that time, and that was where mobility was very hot.
Sure.
So I did bike share, scooter share.
Wow.
So I go from doing compliance for a bank to fixing bicycles in the factory.
That's crazy.
But that I also learned about how important is cash flow.
Right.
And sometimes certain business doesn't survive on its own.
Yeah.
To be better acquired.
Yeah.
So I think mobility is a very important lessons there. But then afterwards, I did some soul searching. I do believe technology can enhance humanities in society.
Sure.
I don't believe technology change humanities. So
Nice.
then I was debating between AI or blockchain as two cool tech in 2017. But at that time, I think the ideology of blockchain resonated with me more.
Nice.
AI is more centralized. It needs a lot more computing data, centralization power.
Sure.
But 2017, I was in San Francisco, and half of the city, the guys in the city are talking about some kind of shitcoin. I'm more of a contrarian. At that time, I was like, I don't know whether people are telling me just emotions or telling me something that's of essence.
Right.
So when 2018, the market crashed, now it's probably a more interesting time to really look into
It's a very good
if there's
time.
any substance.
Yeah.
I was lucky that there are a couple of people that I truly admire. Then they are very convicted in building in the space.
Right.
And then I got lucky to meet the co-founder of Binance at that time, happens to be in San Francisco. At that time, Binance was only 1 year old.
Nice. Which one?
He Yi.
Nice.
So she was by herself in the city and then doesn't know much English at that time.
Oh, wow.
But she was able to pin the value proposition of blockchain to me the clearest.
Nice.
Like the internet needs a native value transfer system, which blockchain has the highest possibility to make that happen.
Makes sense.
And I was basically buying into it. He was a great
Nice.
communicator. She's very transparent. She was very humble. She needs that. Here's all my message and I need help. And I was like, yeah, maybe the best value that I can do is just to help the lady in front of me.
That's awesome.
So
That's really cool.
yeah, so I took a 30% pay cut to join Binance.
That's
in
amazing.
2018.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I just help with the user growth for all the different
Were you kind of helping
language
on the marketing
community.
side?
A lot of on the marketing side, building communities.
Okay.
And then central marketing, performance, all those stuffs. But I'm not a marketing guru. So after doing that for about 3.5 years, I find myself yearning to be closer to the crypto native industry more.
Right.
Because the more I do with Binance, to grow the industry pie bigger, it's about getting the mainstream over.
Sure.
But the mainstream is all about, at the time, 2021, a lot of the sponsorship deals. I do get challenged very frequently. It's like, why is FTX doing all of this and we're not doing stuff? And I was like, I don't see the ROI very clearly.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
Well, I don't mean in hindsight, I think you were right. I think even at the time, I thought that a lot of those expenditures had seriously little value for those companies.
It's
You're
very, very
not going
hard.
to pick off. We were just talking about it the other day. Coinbase came out with a survey the other day in the United States, and a lot of people were trying to advocate that because 20% of the people in the United States own crypto, that somehow that makes them a political force advocating for crypto. And my point is 99% of those people don't even understand what it is. They were buying a speculative asset because their neighbor told them Bitcoin was cool or whatever it is.
Right.
And they don't understand what's happening here, nor the power of what's happening here yet.
Yeah.
And so you're not getting a lasting customer from
Yeah.
spending $40 million on a Super Bowl ad. It's hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sorry, go ahead.
no worries.
Little soapbox action there.
I think it is for the whole industry, right? How do we think about the adoption
Right,
piece?
right.
At least I was at the forefront in thinking about where's the next frontier, and that was a challenge. And I found myself getting further away from the industry.
Right.
Because what I'm dealing with tends to be, this brand, that brand, what kind
Exactly.
of partnerships. And Trust Wallet founder and I were friends for back in 2018.
Nice.
And we often compare notes between the centralized exchange users and the decentralized space. And up to a point, he was like, I want someone to come and help me with everything that's not product engineering.
Wow.
So I'd be like, that would be a great opportunity, especially to think about how to apply what I learned in the centralized exchanges user growth, but thinking about in the decentralized front, how do we do user growth in the next 5 to 10 years.
That's cool.
And that's more interesting and challenging, and I would love to be able to contribute to that. So that's how I joined Trust Wallet last year.
Oh, just last year?
Last year.
Oh, wow.
But our founders decided to take a step back because he has a family, have a baby, so he remains more like advisors.
Wow.
Then I start to take over the
So now
entire
you're
product
taking over
engineering
everything.
team. Yeah.
Wow.
But I was so fortunate. It was a fantastic engineering product team, and I was able to contribute to more from the, how do we understand the user side more?
Product, yeah.
While the engineers are building something and delivering to the user base. So that, it has always been 1 year. Time flies.
Well, so
That's kind of crazy, though. So you took over. I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask. So when you came from the centralized world, and then you started, looking at Trust Wallet and how that can be used in the decentralized world, and onboarding, making it easy for people to come in that aren't, so let's call them normies, not crypto people. What were the things that you saw at Trust Wallet that were really unique that attracted you?
Yeah. I think it's a philosophy ultimately. When you join a company, we're trying to build onto it. I think what attracted me in Trust Wallet was it was very user focused since the beginning. Right. Because 2017 when Trust Wallet was created, it was during that ICO craze, and a lot of the wallets were like desktop or MetaMask.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not very easy for day-to-day people to have. And our founder just I just want to have a mobile app that holds all my shitcoins in one place.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
So that was the end goal of the pain point to solve, but that becomes the most important thing that we have to ask ourselves all the time.
Right.
Is this solving the user's problem?
Right.
Instead, I think a lot of the earlier wallets were built by the industries to facilitate the development of the dApps.
Right.
Right. So it's more of a developer tools angle.
Right.
And then you can see the product philosophy and the trade-off decisions made along that line.
That's right.
So I think that was the angle which I was very buy into it, is that I think the space is big enough. Everyone needs to find a niche to truly serve people.
Yeah.
And our commitment is we wanted to serve the people who onboard into the industry. So how to do that simple.
Right.
Sometimes it's more difficult to say what not to do.
Sure.
And then what are you willing to sacrifice, right? And we do get a lot of the community ask for very degen requests, but is it going to be applicable for or trade-off to some of the common user base? Those
Sure.
are hard decisions to
Yeah.
make. So I think that was the initial angle that really attracted me. Another one is just the team and the company were extremely grounded.
Nice.
For 5 years, all engineers, like we don't have any marketing person, and it's building hard stuff. We build open source, cross-chain, multi-chain mobile library for wallets.
Wow.
So Crypto.com wallet, blockchain wallet, Frontier, they all built on top of our multi-chain infrastructure.
Wow, impressive.
And we just want, and it takes 5 years because every non-EVM chains we build it's not economy of scale of the work.
Of course.
It's one by one.
Of course.
So, but when the industry moved from Ethereum only to the multi-chain world, that's what we heard from users is they want to get access to multi-chain.
Yeah.
Then even though the team is very much like we want to be Ethereum only, maxi, but if you're truly user focused, you're willing to let go of some of your own ego and conviction and build what the users want.
Absolutely.
So again, that's like the user focused fame and willing to do the hard, non-visible work. That to me is the right attitude and a foundation to build in the industry, especially there were so many noises, quick money, quick scheme, like how to just get the valuation or the tokens up. I feel that this was the right environment to potentially build a 10, 20 years for the industry as an infra.
Very cool.
I had no idea that, I will tell you, so kind of from an outside brand perspective for Trust Wallet, right? I've played with Trust Wallet, but I haven't used it actively. I think, first of all, I had no clue that you guys were contributing so much to the open source world in terms of wallets, nor that other projects were using your technology that much. So I think that's one thing I think is important. I think the other thing that's interesting is Trust Wallet, for a lot of us, is seen as a Binance brand, and I don't think people fully understand kind of the full capabilities of what you all have built, right? And I mean, that's a hard thing to communicate, and it's a competitive space. But I had no idea about the open source efforts you guys were putting out. That's great.
So because we are interesting enough, even though Binance acquired us, I think that actually works very well in the sense that like CZ doesn't give us revenue target goals.
No, wow.
Right. Our goal or the mission being a acquired company is that we don't need to figure out the survival part, but we can truly focus on the hard problem, which is bring adoption to the decentralized space.
That's
I think
awesome.
a lot of the wallets probably don't have that luxury, that they have to find a revenue source faster. Right now, I think a wallet has some revenue models, but 4 years ago, when there was no clear revenue approach, then you want to get the safety ground to focus on the right problem.
That's right.
So I actually really appreciate and respect that CZ gave us a lot of space.
That's awesome. And strategically, that's smart, right?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you guys already had a user adoption focus to the wallet and to what you were building. For him to put pressure on you from a revenue perspective doesn't make sense because it distracts from making the experience better. And at the end of the day, if Binance is going to become this decentralized company, which is CZ's vision, then you need a wallet that is going to actually people want to live in. Right? And so you can't get there if you make you and the team focus on how much revenue did you generate this month. And I think that's a really smart long-term strategy.
And I think that's what, CZ gets very mixed reputation, but I do think that was approved for his visionary side. He's not thinking about, okay, I just wanted to get a very profit-driven, maximized, centralized exchange model. Like, I'm thinking about every parts of the company or the ecosystem build that can contribute as an infrastructure for the industry later. So wallet is definitely infrastructure. We serve both the projects and we serve the users. We try to make the right bridge. So and I think that set us free from some of the business side of the concerns and focus on.
Well, I mean, look, you look at MetaMask, right? MetaMask has a huge amount of market share in terms of browser extension. Their mobile wallet is a clunky mess. That's my personal opinion. I know you're not making that comment, but it is a clunky mess, and they have a company that makes them have to focus on driving revenue. And so Swap is a huge part of their revenue every month, and it's obvious that there's not that focus on UI and UX for the user, right? It's we have to make sure we pay our bills, and the consensus needs them to pay their way. So that's fantastic.
I actually respect MetaMask quite a lot in the sense that, again, that's why I said that every company, if they're like builders or the audience group, is that you have your own philosophy and focuses, right? So they come with a value proposition to serve the developers space. So then they did very well over there, and then the whole product design is to make the developers' experiences better. So they are making hard trade-off decisions because that's the value proposition.
It's very true.
And even for us, for now, for example, we have been very mobile focused. It's because we think that's what the onboarding user experiences will require. But then last year, November, we did release a browser extension. Is because we figured that the users onboarding into our space is all surfaces. It's no longer thinking that, like the Web 2 world, it's moving from the desktop to mobile,
Yep.
and then let's just focus on mobile. But we find that this space is that a lot of the interaction is happening on the web front.
Yeah.
So if we are, again, truly user focused, we have to go out of our comfort zone, which is a very mobile specific strength
Yeah.
team, to that new frontier of the web surfaces and try to do better.
Right.
And rethinking about the user experiences, what the users needs in the web environment.
That's right.
And to redesign that.
Well, and I think that's critical. Look, I mean, if, from a user perspective, there's a lot I can do on my mobile wallet.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, investing in complex financial transactions, DeFi applications,
Yeah.
I need a browser extension
Yes.
to do that, right?
Exactly.
It's too much to hop between the browser interface and the wallet and back and forth.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a really smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that worked out for you all so far?
It's doing great. So
Nice.
when we first launched, I think within the first month, we're just looking at third-party data where 1 month we got 14% of the market share on the web
Wow.
extension.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and the weekly active user is like a steady growth,
Nice.
not fluctuating with the market.
That's great.
So it just means that, the product people are using and discovering and constantly coming back.
Right.
Without us necessarily doing like aggressive ads, pushing on it. That's what I consider as the right foundation for the product. You get that good organic growth
Steady. Yeah.
first.
Yep.
Then you hone the product into the right space. Again, this is my marketing side coming in. Then whatever things that you do for growth is more worthwhile.
Right.
Otherwise, you never can do real growth by pouring water into a leaking bucket
That's
Right.
without
good
the first
analogy.
It's good.
I'm
Yeah.
curious with the browser extension.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Okay, some normies are going to come in that way first
Yes.
because they're not comfortable on the mobile.
Yes.
Do you find that what percentage of them are then also going to the mobile wallet?
Yeah.
And then do you find that some of the mobile wallet users, for the reasons Brad mentioned earlier, are then going to the browser extension? Are you tracking that data at all?
Not very well.
Okay.
I would say just be very
Probably
frank.
difficult.
Yeah.
But it's a conscious decision right now that we make the mobile and the web wallet to be distinct, meaning
Okay.
that there's no synergy. That was for security reasons.
Okay.
Because when your new user base coming in, if you give them a QR code, they scan it, they can quickly sync it. Scammers take advantage of that very
True.
easily too.
Sure.
So sometimes, right now it's a little bit hard. It's like willing to take a sacrifice in the UX in order for the protection of the
Makes sense.
security
Smart.
reasons. We might find a better technology that can help with better UX for syncing. Without sacrificing the security, then
Right.
we might be willing to make that move over there.
Makes sense.
Another thing that I think we will do differently is we do find that yes, retail users use more on mobile. The one that are working on the web front are more advanced users and
Right.
sometimes developers.
Yeah.
Previously, we only focused on the retail users, but we haven't focused on developers. But we got a lot of the feedback is that it's very hard to build in the multi-chain environment too. We right now only cater to users navigating to multi-chain by making the automation of chain switch easier.
Right.
But how can we make that happen for developers?
Right.
So that is something that we actually want to contribute to the industry is that we can do better developer tooling to help them to test out in the multi-chain world deployment. Such as we integrate with way more test nets across the different chains and the different faucets for NFTs as well, so that developers right now, they get a lot of political stuff among the different chain environment.
Sure.
But regardless where they choose their home base, when they're thinking about extending to new chains, we think that this is what we focus on. We can do really well to help them
Yeah.
to do the build once, and then you can work for a different level
That's
of the
smart.
chains.
I love the idea of providing those tools to help them.
She should talk to the last two people that we talked to. I mean, the XLR, Galen, and then John at Game 7
Yeah.
that have a new product called Summon SDK coming out that does a lot of that multi-chain hookup.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
no, happy to introduce you to those guys.
Sure,
They're
yeah.
cool.
In
Love
terms
to.
of, so I think you're kind of reaching from a product, being a product, having been a product guy for a long time. I think you're probably reaching an interesting place for you all because you have this very beginner mobile friendly focus.
Yeah.
Now you're moving into DeFi and you're moving into like interaction that's more than just sending and receiving tokens. Is that something you all are starting to think about and deal with right now? Like, where do we, how do we focus that experience, right? Is that something where you actually are going to also expose some of that functionality on the mobile side so you'll have more advanced users or?
Yeah. So we're actually one of the first wallet to carry browsers for dApps within the mobile.
Nice.
Back in 2019, that was when we already have it.
Nice.
I think the wallet involvement, again, wallet is never the end goal for why users come into the space.
Right.
So people come into the space previously probably for custody of the token purposes.
Right.
But as the space starts to get interesting utilities, starting from DeFi, and then there could be NFTs, there could be social, there could be anything else coming out later that take advantage of that ledger ownership. We need to, and that's an opportunity and a challenge, we need to adapt ourselves to allow users to get to the destination.
Sure.
So the browsers have already been in place is for people to graduate from just the holding part into here's what else that we can explore.
Right.
And we do find that heavily web user base, mobile user base are doing more entry level dApp stars.
Okay.
But how I think about the whole user journey that we can do is we can better curate that onboarding experience for users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because a lot of people coming to the space are intimidated.
Absolutely.
They don't know what
It's
to do.
overwhelming. Yeah.
It's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Security is hard enough. Private key protection is hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you get all those different dApps. What do I do with them? How do I protect myself? So something we are really focusing on is rethinking about that onboarding UX. For people to feel that they can graduate from the initial phase to the next level and to the next level up to the point that it's an open wilder world that you go anywhere that you want to do, right? That's a permissionless promise that we really are looking forward to. So how to facilitate users to build up that confidence.
Yep.
And then they get graduated, they get reward, they get happy about it, and then they can go to take on the next challenges, like a gamification experiences for users into the web.
So the user kind of experience will advance as they get used to doing more things. So you may expose a button that says deposit to MakerDAO, whatever, and or whatever it could be, but give them a taste of activating and using DeFi. And then as they get used to it and get more comfortable, then you can expose more of that for them.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's what the kind of the UI UX experiments that we want to do more. Of course, with the new like a con abstraction, MPC, different kind of technology coming up. So people mostly don't know we have 10 million active users on a monthly basis.
Wow.
And we have 16 million total downloads.
That's amazing.
People don't know that much about it because those are real users that
amazing.
they are not on Twitter shouting every day.
Yeah.
And we find that we get quite some developing country user bases, a lot of the Android users, and their average swap or transaction volume size is way smaller.
Sure.
But I'm pretty proud of that. It means that we're doing the right adoption to equalize the right people into the space. So that was something that we're thinking about is, okay, now this group of the users are coming in, and how do we consider about the next wave? And then can we 10x some of the onboarding experiences with a new technology? But where is the risk of security in those technology? Like a con abstraction smart contract carry real risk for a few years. So we want to, when you have a bigger user base, we need to take a slightly more conservative approach to experiment things before we roll it out into a much wider space.
Well, I love the strategy, though. I mean, gradually, you're hitting like what we talk about, like not microfinance, but not like New York City. You're hitting Kenya and India and Thailand and places like that, smaller transactions. But at the same time, you're educating them along the way as to how to do this, because so many times we know people get taken advantage of in the space. And so I like that kind of myself, I had the hardest time just bridging from Ethereum to Polygon back in like February of 21, because I'm like, that's Polygon, hard. What's this? And what's an RPC node? And then you're like, and like, oh my gosh. And then, so we always joke because, you see all these people that still give away their seed phrases. And, you could see how that would happen in, say, populations that are more, not as, say, educationally savvy, but still have get up and go kind of attitude.
Yeah.
But they would miss a piece like that
Yes.
and not realize how important that was. So I like kind of the
I remember the first time we
certification.
tried to go into yield staking. You and I were on the phone, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have to put my money in this thing? Is that how that works?
Yeah. And I was like, this doesn't seem safe.
Who has it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we knew the developer team that was
Yeah.
hosting, so we're like, well, they're good guys, you
Yeah.
know. We
Yeah.
know they're not going to steal it, but you
Normal
know,
people don't know that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
And
Yeah.
that's the biggest, I think that's really perfectly summarizes kind of what you all face, right? Is
Yes.
if you start curating,
Yeah.
right,
It's
how
a
do you
trade-off
pick?
between the censorship,
Yeah.
permissionless
Yeah.
trade-off.
And then how do you
Yeah.
also educate them enough to understand what they're actually doing?
Yeah.
Right? It can't be
Yes.
just click this button and deposit unless
Yeah.
you're going to ensure custody, whatever. Now that you're in a whole other business, right?
Yeah. I think so. Some kind of philosophy that we have is we will always want to be an open ecosystem.
Great.
So no matter what we do, we don't want to find a way that users cannot find their way out.
Right. Nice.
Or they will always need to make a choice, because I think that's one of the best thing that the space teaches people is to be a grown up.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
take your own ownership.
Right.
Exactly.
You have full ownership.
That's right.
And we can do our best to provide information. So, for example, some of the security measures that we had is we're leveraging the different security or risk of database to flag scammer addresses or scam the smart contract might be a snare for certain dApps. And then we will pop up that notification to people when they type in that addresses. We'll be like, this is a high risk, and it's somewhere that is identified as a high risk.
Right.
And then
That's
do
awesome.
you want to proceed or you want to go back?
Right.
So if people somehow know the address is enough, this might be a false positive alert. Sure, you can ignore that.
Right.
But you can do whatever. I'm not going to stop you to do
Right.
this action, but I give you the information to help you
That's
make
awesome.
decisions.
That's awesome.
So that's what we aim for. We probably will have some what we think might be a better user experiences or better dApps for people to have that first taste of a successful DeFi experiences, NFT experiences. They can choose to ignore them. They can directly go to the Wild West if they want.
Right.
Or you can try this, but again, ultimately, we provide the opportunity and the gateway, and people make the best decisions for themselves.
Yeah. And it's a tough balance for you all in terms of promotion of Trust Wallet,
Yeah.
right? As well as thinking about how people could use it. I'm sure
Yes.
that wears on you. What I have to imagine if you've been there about a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole thing of you dove in and then the founder leaves, that must have had to have been challenging for you, right? To take up
Yeah.
all of this at once,
Yeah.
product engineering, the team,
Yeah.
that must have been a bit much.
I think it's about conquering fear.
Yeah.
I think the biggest fear is, I don't necessarily come from the decentralized space at the beginning, even though I'm in the industry for a few years already. I think it's a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah.
I don't know enough product engineering. Like, I'm probably not able to give the best guidances for people. I think conquering, those are fear of inconfidence. But that was a way that I find the mentality that really helps me is don't go in and thinking that you are not the perfect CEO that know all the code, that know all the relationship in the industry.
Right.
Just like try to understand where the team are, where they need help,
Yeah.
and do your best to deliver a value.
Nice.
Like
That's
I think
good.
it applies to no matter that you're a CEO or you're a janitor,
Right.
or you're a
Right.
coder. It's where do I add value to this environment? So I was like humbly listening to everyone. Like just tell me what you do, where you have trouble and issues, and where do you want me to focus my time on?
Nice.
And then there were like tons of crises happening all the time. And I just try to sweep the floor for the team. So or
Nice.
try to save them, that they don't need to worry about certain stuff, and then can focus on deliver the best code that they can,
That's
do
awesome.
the best design they can. And that also sweeping the floor for the team, I also get to learn so much
Absolutely.
already. And I think the team also have the trust in me because I'm not this like high level giving order, whatever things that's clouding the air. I do firefighting. Like I stay up late. I do whatever that can help to remove the blockers for the team, and they feel that we're in this together. We're moving into the right direction to solve problems together. So that was basically my leadership or management philosophy is like try to be a servant leader.
Nice.
We're like try to lay the foundations.
Yeah.
So that the CEO should never be the ceiling of the teams. You should try to be the foundation of the team.
I love that.
And then the better people you hire, again, I try to hire people better than me because otherwise, why do I need you?
Exactly.
Then you become so like everyone's potentials is the limitless ceiling for the company rather than like also don't try to set myself into the pedestal. They're thinking that I have to hold the sky for the team. I think that was never the right way in the space. Already have enough of a big ego people, which ended up not doing the right
Didn't need another one.
Well, how did you evolve that? I mean, was that a strategy that you picked up when you were consulting for the financial service? Because that's I've heard that used in different ways. It's things like, you always hire people smarter than you always, but I love the way that you say sweeping the floor for the teams, because you're kind of aligning with them, and you're not like sitting up on a pedestal where they're all afraid of you and nobody wants to make decisions. You're more like, hey, make decisions. I'm here to support you. But you're the CEO. So it's a different kind of, it's a better way to manage. Because then, like you said, you are part of the team. So particularly with developers and technical people or artist management, they're always thinking of us, say, as the business people, instead of the ally, that helps them. So where did that come from? Is it Phyllis' philosophy of yours or your family's, or what do you think?
You might be a little bit cheesy.
Please.
I think it's the faith. I am a Christian.
Nice.
So I think it's just some of the fundamental about the faith is like take a more humble approach.
Yeah,
sure.
I've already been served, so I want to serve others better.
Nice.
I like it.
And I don't try to find human validation in me. I don't need that.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to build up my ego.
Love it.
All I need to do is to see how do I help other people to maximize the best potential that they have, because they deserve it.
That's
I think
awesome.
I just got the gift that I can better coordinate. I can bring people together. I can see their potential. It doesn't mean that I'm always this sweet and nice giving encouragement. I always say that this is not right to do so. Like you're not user focused enough.
Right.
You're just trying to show off this technical capability which solves nothing.
Right.
I will be sometimes very direct in that way.
Good.
But I think it's just I ultimately, regardless of whether we're in the industry or not, actually because it's in the industry, I believe that as a wallet, especially what we do provide self-custody, is to give people this power of ownership.
Yeah.
And just like in the US, when first the constitutional voting come out, you first apply to people who have assets.
Right.
Why? It's because people with assets make more rational decisions.
That's right.
And I think that sometimes the people in the world are seemingly having ownership, but in effect don't.
Right.
And once you have this taste that I'm actually responsible of this, and this truly belongs to me, I hope that I can bring more people into the right mental space. And what we need to do is, how do we enable that? And I can do that with a team, but how as a wallet we enable that for the users who are in the space.
Right.
And then how do we help the developers to build better projects that also support the users to get to that end goal? No matter that's creator can create better, users can own better their own data, their own footprint, and then they make better decisions. They have accessibility to things that otherwise they don't. I think we are in one of the best product value proposition and in the right industry to give me the opportunity to kind of empower people to do so.
That's awesome. Yeah. Being a servant CEO type is definitely well suited for this industry.
Yeah.
And it makes a ton of sense. I've heard other leaders talk about that model. I love the articulation of it, and I really love the sweeping the floor for the team.
Thank you.
And it's funny, it's because I don't think I did it as well as you, but when I was in leadership positions in companies, I never wanted to be the person necessarily controlling where the company was going. right? I wanted those people that worked and knew their role better than I did to be able to make those decisions. So I really like that. Really hits home with me. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's very hard to do this role because we still carry responsibilities.
Of course.
Something I tell my team is, again, this is user focus that we do. All the leaders needs to serve customer support shift once a quarter.
Nice.
They need to get this visceral, direct reaction by seeing people when they are losing their keys or they get scammed or whatever to understand the pain points that users are facing in order to better make decisions in their own spot. And sometimes it's really hard. The people will be blaming for, why the token doesn't 10x, right? Like those type of things happen on an everyday basis. So,
oh my God,
and then
I would not want to do support at Trust Wallet. That would be painful.
The developers do something.
So how to both like face all those public pressure and then still being able to tell the team and then what we're doing is delivering the long-term values and then apologize publicly on behalf of the team all the time. Just like, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, this node is down, right? You cannot do this transaction. And then those are not easy, but then we just have to carry this responsibility for the team so that they can focus on creating the best value.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I love your style.
Yeah. Super impressive. I mean, what I love about interviewing people is that it's always something you don't expect to hear that is the most impressive thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nugget for me is your management style. I mean, I think it's plus your journey, how you got there and everything, I find very intriguing. But just the fact that you're really putting that into practice in a way that most people can't. And so I think that's super impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's a constant reflection. This space is so close to money. You get a lot of temptation.
I'm sure.
And how to be very level-headed and then be grounded enough to make a decision that's not trading off short-term but for the long-term. But again, there were so many short-term crises you have to solve at the same time. But I guess that's why we're in this space.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're not doing something else,
Exactly.
which is easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many people at Trust Wallet?
We have 50 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 50 people, we have 10 million active users, and then we support 70 chains.
Wow.
It's not easy. It's another balance betwing.
I was expecting a bigger
maintenance.
number for support.
Yeah.
Like, that would take a lot more people.
Like a couple hundred people.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I find I ultimately I want the team to be a special force team.
Yep.
I think you don't need a huge army to deliver a good successful product.
Right.
Because sometimes when you have too many people, you get inefficiencies too.
Right.
I'd rather pay a lot more for one really talented developer or a content person that can do 3 people's work, and I'm happy that they get the challenges, they get the reward, than 3 mediocre people.
Love it.
I'm happy to find people who have potentials and put them into positions to grow into it. I think that's also something that's rewarding. I want the team ultimately go out there and say that, hey, I work for Trust Wallet and the industry would love to hire them.
Nice.
And that is what I think I can also do a good job for my team.
Yep.
And that's also efficient and good enough for the company too.
Yeah. It's funny. It's what I always told the people that worked for me, and I tell my children, my job is to delete myself. Right?
Yes.
My job is to make me unnecessary, so that whatever you decide you're going to do, you don't need me anymore.
I do have a vision is that I think a lot of the startups right now do need a centralized leadership or core execution team to bootstrap it.
To make it happen.
Because in the beginning you need a lot of fast pivoting, very focused, no distraction, just go get it done.
That's right.
But then after the project grows for a period of time, it's at a mature stage, you want that check and balances.
That's right.
You want a little bit more stability rather than single point of failure.
Yep.
And I do find decentralization will better serve for that round.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Another vision that I have is how can I potentially build a good team and then bring that into a decentralization. That's why I also don't want to grow the team significantly better. But thinking about how can we outsource decision more and more to the community.
Nice. Nice.
How can we no longer be the only one that's at the core of it, but thinking about who else might be caring about this together, and then get the right incentives, get the right participation. It might not be a 2-year thing. It might be like 5 years. Let's see if we get there. But this is another experiment. I think our industry have the infrastructure and the culture to experiment some governance.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you as a wallet company have a direct channel of communication to people, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, we're empowering you today,
Yes.
right? We need you. Yeah, they can start small, but I think that's actually a really good strategy. And it, look, as part of Binance, that's where Binance, I believe CZ when he says he wants this to be a decentralized company, and I think that's been his path, and that's where he wants to take it. So the beauty of it is you all are in a place where that could very well happen. So
Yeah.
that's
And
great.
then you're the wallet for what we used to call Binance Smart Chain, but now BNB Chain. So, I mean, that's beautiful. And I think that, I didn't know that about CZ, his hands-off style on that. But I like the fact that he just put the money in and then, said, make the best product.
Yeah.
Not, we need 4 million users by Q2, this, and what's the return on investment for each user, or what's the margin contribution for each user. He's just like, build me the best thing.
Yeah.
And that's something I don't think he gets a lot of credit for either, right? I mean, I've never really been that aware of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's, there's obviously a future there when you're across, would you say 90 chains?
70 chains.
70 chains, yeah.
Yeah, so we support all the major non-EVMs,
Right.
including the new move system like Aptos, etc.
Yeah.
So again, it's just where users want us to be, and we will help them to get there.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you have only 50 people. I assume a chunk of those are engineers,
Yeah,
and then
the
you're
majority
still
are
supporting
engineers.
70 chains.
Wow.
That's astounding.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Wow.
So we will see how the
That's
industry
a great
play out.
team, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
great team. I mean, you really think about, you see the other scale of other companies in this space. That's fantastic.
And then for the past year, we have no voluntary leaving.
Wow.
We have no one voluntarily left.
Wow, that's amazing. So you've
yeah.
created a good culture and atmosphere.
I hope so.
That's great.
Sounds like you have to me. I
Yeah.
mean, if nobody's going anywhere, obviously your management style is,
Yeah.
they're recognizing that it's unique
Yeah.
and that they feel valued, that they're contributors,
I
not
hope
just
so. Yeah.
employees.
Yeah.
Do you feel, are you feeling regulatory pressure as a wallet company?
I think there absolutely is. I think it's smarter that we proactively think about it
Right.
rather than passively wish that you wouldn't be there.
Right.
I think that was my management consultant background in the traditional financial industry. I think it helps me to be a bit more open-minded to all the different players in society, their needs, their state, their concerns in our
Sure.
space. So I think the regulators have a fair concern when it comes down to terrorist financing money. And honestly, like every government, it's not just US government, every government cares about their people
Sure.
and their assets.
Of course.
So it's not unique to any country. And if our industry cannot solve the government's concern, let's say legitimate government concern, not every government is equal
It's true.
in that sense.
Yeah.
That's true.
Then if we cannot solve it, the government will just say, we'll ban it. That's not going to
Yep.
benefit anybody.
That's right.
So, but instead of passively waiting on the government or regulators to give us the rule, I do think that, especially when the space is so new and it's very technical and difficult to understand, it's better that we proactively explore some good technological solutions and then propose to the regulator and say that here's your concerns. This is our best effort to try to address it.
Right.
And
No, I
try
totally
to be in
agree.
the middle.
Yeah.
No, absolutely engaging with them is the way to go. Proactively engaging. I think is super
Education,
smart.
understanding. There's a lot of biased opinions, of course.
Of course.
But again, being willing to humbly listen to why they struggle,
Right.
and then share with them as much that we can and show that we're collaborative.
Yeah.
I think our industry needs that instead of taking a very resistant approach.
Totally
I agree with that. Yeah,
Totally agree.
100%.
You're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You'll end up with what you don't want. The
Yeah.
thing you most don't want is what you'll end up with if you don't engage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What else is coming for you all?
Um,
Anything you want to tell us, announce, anything?
yeah, I think the probably the developer support is a very important
that's awesome.
out of comfort zone support for us. So we would just wanted to get as many feedback and suggestions on how we can better
Cool.
serve that. And then I think I would love anybody just to be able to reach out to me and tell me that here's what we're building, here's what we're using, and why we have pains.
Nice.
Again, sometimes by doing the wallet very privacy focused, decentralized without much data, it could get very singular and build a solution that's not necessarily addressing the problem.
That's great.
I always want to tell the team is that don't be obsessed with the solution, be obsessed with the problem, but we need to get enough data points to understand the problem to build.
That's right.
So we will go more local in order to hear more users' diverse needs and the pain points. So we're building local communities around.
Okay.
And that's also a trend towards that decentralization vision.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And then also want the developers to give us those feedback too on how we can better be that infrastructure bridge.
Do you think you'll end up with variances in the interface beyond just language in other parts of the world, or do you already have that now?
We already have serving 20 different languages.
Right.
But again, I think it's a resource capacity issue. Let's say if AI solves that problem.
That would be awesome. It's funny that I was, when you said AI or blockchain and you chose blockchain, I thought, well, yeah, but now it's probably going to circle back around and be a part of blockchain. So that's going to be a unique opportunity for you, especially as someone who is front-facing to the customers.
Yeah.
Yes, I think a lot of customer support education can be leveraged by the AI because they're all public data. We don't have proprietary database that we're afraid that AI somehow leak it. So we are also very looking forward to experiment how that could 10x the user experiences for onboarding.
Nice. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point.
After you retire from Trust Wallet, what would you be doing? Would you be a venture capitalist, an angel investor, start another company?
I'll just try where the environment I'm in and how I can deliver value for people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can either deliver value for my family, my child, or whoever that God brings into my life.
Nice.
No matter that they are builders, they need help, then I'm happy just to meet them where they are.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do your family understand what you do?
Yes.
They understand what Trust Wallet is?
They understand, yes.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's good.
So,
yeah, we joke about that a lot of times. Like parents don't really know. Well, they know what even my dad said it the other day. He goes, I really don't know what you do. Yeah. And I was like, well, it's not really the show. I do that for fun. I said, it's all the other stuff you know about. He's like, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah. But, the couple of guests ago was like, John was that his parents didn't know what he did. Yeah. And I said, and then they say something like, but great job. We're proud of you. Yeah. And so that's what I love about parents. How old is your child?
A 3-year-old.
Bravo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've got a 17-year-old daughter. He's got
he started out, wait.
Okay.
She started a CEO job in a company, and the founder leaves while her child is 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
Impressive.
That is impressive.
Now that is undervalued in this society. I mean, that is very impressive.
Sleep deprivation. That's brutal.
Yeah. Sleep is very important in order to make the right decision.
Oh my God.
Because then if you don't have enough sleep, then you don't have the right temperament.
Yes.
Then you're a little cranky. At least I am.
Yeah.
I know you are.
To your point, I think that I think a growth mindset is very important. Like, if you see life as an internship or a training, then every challenges you throw at you, just going to practice your muscles, stimulate your muscles.
Love it.
So ultimately, I find that people who are able to do well, they can take on more challenges exponentially. It's not because they have more time. It's just that they are willing to think harder in balancing the different solutions together. I'm very lucky and fortunate that my family are extremely supportive. Okay. But that's also high leverage things, right? If there are builders out there, you don't want to sacrifice your family relationship to only build, because you realize that when you're taking on too much of a debt, they will come back to bite you.
That's right.
Yeah.
But if you have a good family, foundations, supportive environment, there are highest leverages that you can get a peace of mind.
That's
and then you
nice.
also get a psychological, mental comfort that people have your back, even if you have failure in your setback
Yeah.
in some of the work stuff.
That's awesome.
It's okay, I can close my laptop and I have my lovely son.
That's great. I love
And
that.
I think yeah, sometimes entrepreneurs are only doing their career. I think that does help them to focus, but also the mental health side is very tricky
Yeah.
because you have no hedge
Yeah.
against whatever setback that you
That's
have.
true. That's true.
And having a balanced portfolio in life is also.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
very,
that.
very
That's
true.
fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the things that I've most enjoyed is, being a dad. To me, that's been a lot of fun. And, she's getting ready to go off to college next year. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, how did that happen?
Yeah.
I guess I'm
Time
not
flies.
39 anymore.
You turn around, mine's 16 and got another year of high school, I have another one 14. You turn around and it's like, what?
What happened?
Yeah.
What just happened here? This
Yeah.
this boy is like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I also say I constantly turn around expecting to see a little kid there, and all of a sudden you're like, you're not. It's like 5'7",
Yeah.
but that's the reward.
Yeah.
And so I think your advice is really, or your sharing is really on point, because so many people when you're in your 20s, let's say, or at least before you're married and have kids, you are focused on just go, and you don't really get it.
Yeah.
And then it's not until you have kids that you really kind of get it at that point.
Yeah, that's also a grown-up experience.
Yeah. And it's that then you're kind of like, wow, okay. And you were scared of it, at least I was, in my younger years. But then when it happened, then I was like, wow, this was worth it. It's like a totally different mindset. And then you kind of see, okay, that's what carries you through, when you're having tough times or, having setbacks. That's the piece that you really can kind of go, okay, this is why I'm doing all of this, so is for that person. And if you don't have that, then the work becomes kind of not meaningless, but it becomes all consuming.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
So fantastic to meet you.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It
Thanks
was
very
fun
much for
to
coming
have
on.
the
I
chat.
appreciate it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Let me
Thank
click-
you.